What is going on? I want to welcome you from half court for today, Wednesday, February 8th, 2023. I am your host, Sean Murphy, alongside my guy, Jeff Ifrady. Jeff, you're still here. We can still talk to each other. Even though I'm not at one word, we can still talk to each other.
Yeah,
we're afraid of that, but you aren't going anywhere, damn it.
No, from half court is not breaking up. We have a lot of work to do, and it's an important week. It's an exciting week. It's one of my favorite weeks of the year for any sport. And you already saw some moves being made, but man, it's just too important of a time, man. It really is.
I only make joke of it. I only make light of it because the way I did leave was in good terms and was in a way where we can still, laugh about it. So it's one of those things where, to me, if people are like, "Oh, what does this mean for from half court?" I was like, "What do you mean?" Like to me, it was just like, it's nothing because I'm just glad we still get to do this. Jeff, you're my guy, so super excited that you're here, but also excited that I have this Polish meat hammer right here, my guy, Troy, good to see you as always, my friend.
Good to see you. I finally did it, Sean. I finally saw him. I saw LeBron James. Just sent you a pic. Great to finally see him in person. He had a little bit of, not a massively quiet night, but for him, just 27 points wasn't 40, but it certainly wasn't 7. So I got to see a mediocre performance by LeBron, but hey, seeing him in person after all these years of watching him was great. So enjoyed that. Then on Sunday, found super cheap tickets last minute to Cavs and Pacers. Got to see Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell.
You had me scared for a second. I was like, oh no, you didn't go see the Grizzlies. Ja Morant didn't drive by and point the laser at you, did he?
No, not at that game. Had a great week. Anytime I can go to one NBA game in a week, it's a great week. But when I can go to 2, even better.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. And I'm just gonna say I'm jealous of you because that's like you're in the basketball fanatics heaven in the sense that even though you're around a team that currently their stars injured, they're kind of plummeting in the standings. You still get to go see the best players in the world and get insanely cheap tickets because they're the Pacers. How is that not the best?
How far of a drive is it, Troy, to get down there?
7.2 miles from my house.
Oh, that's not bad. By the way, LeBron too, another part of this. LeBron, was he 36 points away, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, 36.
Record. Tomorrow night they play at 10 o'clock. I mean, I'm tuned in. I'm locked in, dude.
Yeah. By the time the next episode of From Half Court comes out, LeBron James will have set the all-time scoring record. And so we'll talk about more about that at that time when he officially does it, because I'm sure there'll be the event itself. I'm sure we'll be talking more here in a couple minutes about LeBron James's appearance on ESPN today, because there's this little thing going on, guys, called the trade deadline, because this is From Half Court. Each and every week we talk about all things NBA basketball and the Detroit Pistons. If you like that, be sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share with your friends, and join in the conversation down below, and also in our From Half Court Discord, which you can join in the link in the comment section right down below. Also, be sure and subscribe to my new channel and check out Mornings with the Murph Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m. Also, follow my guy Jeff at Jeff Ifrady, and my boy Troy at Troy Sergey 44. Boys, that was a mouthful, but we got through it. Anyways, let's talk basketball.
Do it.
So first of all, what the Kyrie Irving's a Maverick? I can't think of any other way to introduce this topic than that. Kyrie Irving, which first of all, people trying to tell me or tell us in the coming weeks that this was going to be a boring trade deadline.
No way.
You look like an idiot right now. This is already chaos, and it's not even deadline day yet. Kyrie Irving went to Joe Tsai, Sean Marks, in the Brooklyn Nets and said, I'm walking this summer, so you might as well trade me before the deadline. And apparently they said, you know what? We're sick of it. Fine. We're shipping your ass out of here. And And reportedly, Joe Tsai, one of his objectives during this trade was to specifically make sure that Kyrie Irving would not become a Los Angeles Laker. And so with that, Kyrie Irving was traded to the Dallas Mavericks, a team that just these last couple of weeks have been talking about how they need to make a move, how they need to go get a star alongside Luka Doncic. Man, if only I could go back and yell and tell him, no, not that star.
And you know what?
Oh
from a business perspective, I completely understand where Kyrie's coming. I get both sides, to be honest with you. From Kyrie's side,
in a vacuum.
Yes. Like if you're not getting the full guaranteed money that Kyrie wants, then of course, as a business, like any businessman would, you say, well, I'm gonna walk or trade me. Now, from the Brooklyn Nets side, to say specifically we're not gonna send you to LA. Now, if you want to talk about the offer itself, the Mavericks, I like the offer. I didn't hate it. Maybe the Lakers is probably not as intriguing. I know they asked for like a ridiculous amount of not only just players, but they had draft picks along with it. And they were like, yeah, no thanks to that. But at the end of the day, and we'll get into the basketball fit, but I just want to say that from a contract perspective, I don't, everyone wants to come at Kyrie. Oh, he can't stay with the same team,
sure.
which is true. But at the same time, he wanted to be in Brooklyn. They didn't want to give him the money.
Oh, yeah,
but I get why they didn't want to give him the money. I get both sides.
Right. But that's the thing, Jeff, is it's not like there isn't this glaring, extremely obvious reason as to why they didn't give him his money. Because if you look at the tail of the tape, over 130 missed games in his time as a Brooklyn Net, one playoff series won. He refused to get the COVID vaccine. He's been unreliable at every single turn. I mean, just a couple months ago, we were talking about Kyrie Irving and him dropping the link to the anti-Semitic movie on his Twitter account. You know what I mean? So it's like for Brooklyn, I understand, Kyrie Irving, the real thing. It wasn't even about from the reporting from Shams Charania and from a lot of a lot of the reading that I've done. It's from the sounds of it. It wasn't the money that was an issue with the Kyrie Irving camp, but it was rather the language used in the contract. There were contingencies on the final years of the deal, not wanting to fully commit long term. So I get from Kyrie saying, well, I'm one of the best players in the world. Why shouldn't I get one of the contracts like one of the other best players in the world? And I would say, because every other best player in the world, where they're going to be Monday through Sunday.
Right. Yeah.
Like with Kyrie, he was just saying last week how he wants to help build the Brooklyn Nets culture and foundation going forward, how he wants to help be part of the long-term process. This was a week ago. There were reports a week ago that were saying Kyrie was going to sign a deal with them this summer. And then he just randomly shows up and goes, I want out.
Hey, things change when you see the dollar amount.
Yeah. I just wanted to say I'm excited. I'm excited for Luka in a lot of ways, but there's something about the Dallas Mavericks that we've seen so far. We've seen two different Mavericks teams. Three, I guess. We've seen Luka Doncic play out of his mind and have the Mavericks, win a few games above 500. We've seen Luka Doncic put everything on the line and the Mavs still come up short in a loss. And we've seen the few games where Luka doesn't play, and we've seen that disaster in Dallas. Now, going for what Sean just said about Kyrie's not being available, really some days during the Monday through Friday schedule, Monday through Sunday schedule, if Kyrie Irving isn't there and the Dallas Mavericks gave up a Spencer Dinwiddie and a Dorian Finney-Smith, who are great role players on this team, man, they are really screwed if Kyrie doesn't show up. You have a great two tandem, but you need two at all times in order for this to work.
Yeah, that's the thing. If one of those two guys is out, this entire team is on its side. Right. Like to your point, this is a team where they need everything to go well. Like we were talking before the pod, Jeff, you brought up how this trade shows how much they miss Jalen Brunson. It's it's the fact, we were talking about how they just needed to get a star around Luka, but it's before this, they didn't even have like a competent ball handler. Like Spencer Dinwiddie was the second leading scorer on the Mavericks, I believe, and he was averaging 12 points a game.
Right.
And like the reality of it is like, yes, from if we're looking on, like I actually made this point in the first episode of Mornings with Murph, shameless plug. I talked about how on paper, this is going to be one of the most like dangerous offensive tandems ever put together on a basketball court. But the problem is basketball's never played on paper, and Kyrie Irving takes a whole lot more to explain than a box sheet and a piece of paper. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the other thing as well, the one last point I want to throw out to discuss about this trade with you guys. Let's look at their potential starting five. Luka, Kyrie, Tim Hardaway Jr., Christian Wood, Dwight Powell. Where's the defense?
And that's the next part of it is this is what I'm watching this week is what do they do with Christian Wood? And again, his value is not as high as he probably thinks it is.
Right.
But if you can flip Christian Wood for some sort of, above average defensive player who can also shoot, that's going to be probably the target for the Mavericks. Because that's a great point. And I know that's why they're shopping Christian Wood. You lost Finney Smith, which ideally you'd like him to stay with Kyrie, but they wanted Finney Smith. It is what it is. They got to find a way to replace that. Because to your point, Sean, you have Hardaway starting at the 3, and you have 2 guys in your backcourt that are liabilities. Like, what happens when you go up against some of the better teams in the West that have dominant 3s or 4s, guys that you're going to have to match up with? I'll tell you what, if you keep Christian Wood, he's not guarding these guys. So Hardaway, you're going to have to find a way to replace Finney Smith to some extent. So that's something I'm paying attention to this week.
Which, by the way, I have never in my entire life seen a franchise be so transparently not in love with a player like I've seen with the Mavericks and Christian Wood since day one. Like, I was even reading today, like, to your point, like they're still figuring out like what Christian Wood's fate is going to be. A lot of people assumed after this trade, oh, well, you throw Christian Wood in there, then that's a real offensive tandem. But the reality of it is that all things point to the fact that it sounds like they're trying to shop him. And so if that is indeed the case, and it apparently he has been offered an extension as well, but I mean, it's like, oh, like that could go either way. I personally think it's going to go more toward, I personally think it's going to eventually go towards he's going to get shipped. That's just how I see it going.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And kind of going backtrack a little bit, guys, shame on the Los Angeles Lakers for 2 years ago getting Russ. I mean, we've talked about that a million times, but imagine if they still had a Kuzma on this team and they were able to shop him for maybe Kyrie. Now, I know that's still something that we wouldn't really know what would work, but imagine a healthy AD, a locked-in LeBron, and a locked-in Kyrie. You're a better team with that, Russ.
They're the best team in the West to me. With Steph Curry out, like, you don't know what – yeah. I mean,
right.
You're absolutely right.
Right. And, like, and Troy, to your point, that is exactly why that deal didn't happen. Because if you look at what it came down to, of all the teams that were interested, Dallas had the best trade package. I mean, the fact that they were willing to offer Dorian Finney-Smith, which I know is a guy that we haven't talked about of the highest in the past. And it's funny, I remember we were talking about the reports of like Dallas being willing to trade him for a star player. Well, hey, they traded him for a star player, didn't they? It's kind of crazy because the other piece of it is Kyrie's a free agent after this season. So let's say for Dallas's side of things, you're kind of in a position where you have to either play ball with Kyrie Irving long term, or you have to risk letting him walk. And I know people are saying, oh, well, if he walks, then that opens up cap space. Hey guys, can you tell me the name of the big name Dallas Mavericks free agent over the last 20 years?
By the way, and I want to add this in too, because I forgot to mention this before, and I'm glad you brought that up. Especially from us who cover Detroit sports, I can appreciate Dallas taking this risk. And I know it's a high risk, but to your point, Sean, You're not going to get these guys if you're Dallas in free agency. You got to go get them and hope you pitch something to them so they extend. So I can appreciate it, but at the same time, you're right. It's a risk. So just letting him walk is the less ideal option.
Right.
You got to sign him to an extension. I know Mavericks, there's been reports that they're okay with letting him leave. Good luck. Because that's what you gave up, Finney Smith, the future first, and you let him walk. That's tough.
Especially
when you
an
failed to get a deal done with Jalen Brunson.
Full unprotected first-round pick.
Yeah.
And also,
bold.
Playoffs play a narrative into the offseason, as we've seen with Phoenix, with DeAndre Ayton. Obviously he still stayed, but playoffs and the stories and the locker room and the coaches and the lineups all play a decision for a player's perspective of what decision they make in the offseason. So maybe Dallas does offer him all the money in the world, but he's done playing, so to understand that there's a chance that he's a rental player for the Mavs this year, they really got to go all in this regular season and playoffs.
And I mean, listen, like if this is indeed a rental, it's not a terrible rental. Like if Kyrie Irving comes in focused and committed and truly wants to, from this point forward, just play basketball, and he and Luka can go out and see what they can do together. Yeah, that's inherently fascinating. But look me in the eyes and tell me that Kyrie Irving isn't going to be a distraction for the Dallas Mavericks at some point going down the stretch of the season, because you can't. Because everyone argues, well, no, this is the time that Kyrie knows that he's got. Haven't we said that every last opportunity Kyrie's been given?
Yeah. Really ever since he left LeBron. And we know how good of a leader LeBron is, but he hasn't really played with that type of caliber of a leader, I should say. Player Luka's obviously one of the better players in the world, but as a leader, like Luka, that guy? No, he's not. So I'm interested to see how Kyrie behaves, because I think over the last couple of weeks we've seen in Brooklyn, he's been on his best behavior. And then he saw that non-guaranteed money, and now he's like, all right, trade me. That's another storyline to watch.
Yeah, 100%. And guys, not only, like this isn't just like a one and done trade where now the rest of the league is like, all right, well, Kyrie's on the Mavs, we're just going to stand put. No, like Brooklyn's trying to take some of these pieces that they got from this trade and are trying to flip it and make other deals. From reports, it sounds like Brooklyn's trying to take Spencer Dinwiddie and some draft compensation and see if they could possibly turn that into Fred VanVleet. And now if you're talking with the Brooklyn Nets and you have a lineup potentially with Dorian Finney-Smith, Fred VanVleet, Kevin Durant, I don't hate that down the stretch. It's especially just get some shooters around Kevin Durant and some guys that you can rely on playing. And Fred VanVleet, even though he's not having as good of a season this year for the Raptors, knows how to play playoff basketball. A guy you can rely, will consistently be there. You know what you're going to get out of him. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Now, the question is, do you believe Kevin Durant already asked out before, right? And that didn't end up coming to fruition. So what do you do now? Because the reports, I read a couple of them about how the Brooklyn Nets, Sean Mark, they want to build around KD, but does KD want to stay and be built around in Brooklyn is the question I have. And, Stephen A. Smith coming out with his comment about the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, that was nuts.
That's the question. If you're Brooklyn, do you throw everything in one basket to build around Kevin Durant for him to ask for a trade?
Yeah. It's and that's the 7-foot tall domino that is looming over this all that could come in and change the balance of power in the league at any point.
But if I'm the Nets organization, I'm talking to KD constantly and
of course
that we're building around him, that we made that trade for him and to bring assets around him. If I'm the Nets, that is the last thing I want to do, nor is it the last thing on my mind is to move KD.
Right. Oh, of course. Yeah, and that is only there as an option if you truly need to. And I think, granted, I think now that they've traded Kyrie and have gotten some compensation in return, and if this was indeed the time where Kevin were to ask out, I think this is they would have a decent launch pad to actually start a decent rebuild here. But at the same time, it would be much better if they can move forward with Kevin Durant. Here's the other problem facing the Brooklyn Nets roster. They have a Ben Simmons contract that is awful. sitting on their books. I mean, guys, we talked about like, could Ben Simmons return to form this season? That answer's been resounding no. He like Ben Simmons is just straight up been game 6 Ben Simmons is just who he is now on the court. That's just who he is.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're not moving him. There's no way.
The only way I could see Ben Simmons being moved is if you quite literally almost gave him away to a team like San Antonio or to a team, to a rebuilding team. But even then, like where is the value in that?
Right.
Like who wants that contract? Who wants that, that presence in their locker
Even
room?
to a rebuilding team, you're not going to rebuild around that bad contract.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, exactly.
And not even just the contract, but looking at how he's playing basketball, the player right now as well, you wouldn't want to build around. Oh. Maybe rookie year, third year, fourth year, Ben Simmons. Now, what we're seeing now, no, that's I don't think there's hardly a market, if any.
Which there isn't, because according to Chris Haynes straight up reported today, there is no trade value for Ben Simmons.
That's tough to do. Mm-hmm. Most players have some sort of trade value. I bet Hamidou Diallo has trade value, and Ben Simmons has little to nothing.
Yeah,
that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the reporting says no trade value / 0 trade value. I mean, this is like the fact that this is a guy who was a number 1 overall pick being called, being compared to LeBron James. Wild. But guys, another potential thing that could be looming as well, and another name to be looking out for, Dorian Finney-Smith, kind of like one of those like big wing pieces that was on the market. OG Anunoby, another potential piece. He was the guy before Kyrie Irving came and requested the trade. He was probably the biggest asset that everyone was going for. He was the biggest domino to fall before all this, if you will. I want to come to you guys, and Troy, maybe this is where we can kind of have some of our fun begin that we were talking about before, where, Troy, do you want to explain what we did last year for our trade deadline show?
Yeah, we gave probability, we gave odds, we gave percentages of the likelihood of players getting traded. And we started at 100%. We started at the players that we knew for a fact were going to get traded. We had Marvin Bagley on that list. And I'm trying to think, we had someone else too.
I even said he was going to go to the Pistons, by the way. I'm pretty sure I called that.
You called it, but that wasn't your 100%. You were just for 100% Sacramento was going to part ways. There was another player too, but then we went to like the 80%, the 60%, the 50%, and then the more wild cards beyond that. And I would love to do the same today as well.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, no, Troy brought it up. Like this is good. Like this is a show that he's been looking forward to the most this year, and I would agree 100% because the trade deadline might be it's Christmas for NBA fans. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, it's straight up Christmas. Mm-hmm. So let's start then, Troy, on the trade probability scale. Let's start towards the 100% end. Where do you guys think it's fair to say that OG Anunoby is getting traded before the deadline?
I'm still at like 70 or 80. I'm not quite at 100.
Okay. Jeff, what about you?
I think he'll be dealt. I do. If I had to give a percentage, I'll say 75%. I think maybe there's that 25% he doesn't, but I think, like you just said, besides Kyrie, which no one knew he'd be available, he was the big fish. There's going to be teams that inquire about OG, and I think a team like Memphis would be ideal. Like that's a great landing spot for OG, but we'll see. I think there'll be plenty of teams interested. I do think a deal will get done. And if it doesn't, maybe it gets done in the offseason.
Yeah, I personally think the odds are immensely high. I would put this at like 85 to 90% him getting dealt. From the sounds of it, there's a little bit, from what reporting has suggested, it sounds like there's even a bit of a bidding war within New Orleans and Memphis. Apparently, Memphis really doesn't want New Orleans to get him. New Orleans really doesn't want Memphis to get him. The fact that Brooklyn, it sounds like Brooklyn could potentially be interested in OG Anunoby now as well, which, I mean, if you throw freaking Dorian Finney-Smith, OG Anunoby alongside Kevin Durant, good Lord.
And by the way, New Orleans doesn't need OG. They have Herb Jones.
Like their entire roster is like long, like versatile defensive wings.
And by the way, that's an inside joke to Pistons fans. But you know what? At the end of the day, OG is going to have value, man. There's going to be guys that inquire about him. So I didn't even know Memphis was actually calling. I just said Memphis because I thought that would be a great fit. I'm glad they are. Like we talked about DeMar, we threw names around. I think OG and Memphis would be great.
Well, at the they better be dialing with curiosity right now because
what are they 1-10 over the last 11 or something like that?
Yeah, so they have lost after John Morant went on ESPN and now infamously made an ass of himself, saying that he's worried about the Celtics because we good in the West. Memphis, I think, has won like 2 games or 3 games against the West since then, and are 2-8 in their last 10, and have had multiple on-court incidents where, quite frankly, I think Memphis has gotten punked on occasion after occasion after occasion. I mean, guys, this team's got to grow the hell up.
I know,
and fast.
I know,
and it's got to start with John Morant. Like I love John Morant as a star and as a guy, but like this whole thing of rolling with his crew and someone pointing a red laser at somebody, whatever that laser is, whether it's a gun, whatever that is, man, you gotta nip that right in the bud.
Yeah, I think Shannon Sharp did a fantastic job of breaking down his situation today. But more on that, though, with John Morant, just the Grizzlies in general, it's clear that the hype has gotten to their heads. Like, they got to the second round, lost to the Warriors. I think they blew the Warriors out, if I'm not mistaken, 1 game. And other than that, Warriors took care of business. Now they think they run the West? I mean, I'm confused. In what world did I see the Grizzlies make it to the Western Conference Finals and compete for the NBA Finals? I don't think I remember that. And that's the problem, I guess, with having a team that most of your significant players are so young. Like, Ja's supposed to be the leader, but it's really just a bunch of young guys. Steven Adams is more reserved. He's quiet. Like, there isn't really somebody to keep these guys in check. And for Ja to say things like that is the most idiotic statement, man, you can make. Like, I get you're a top of the West, but to come out and say we're worried about the Celtics,
and then asked about the West. Nah, we good.
Are you serious? Like, to a Warriors team you lost to? And by the way, I'll never forget the comment. Klay Thompson, one of my favorite players to watch in the NBA. I love how when he clapped back at Jaren Jackson for those comments they made about the Warriors, and then Klay clapped back. Like, your guys aren't on the same level as the Warriors. Like, I don't know in what world, because we watch the NBA all the time. We're big NBA fans. In what world are the Grizzlies on any of the same platforms as the Boston Celtics or as the Golden State Warriors? I don't remember. Stay humble. Stay humble. That's the motto for the Memphis Grizzlies. They have failed to do that. I think the hype has just gotten to their heads.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. A lot of people in this league act like they've won something. Like, it's incredible.
Come on.
Yeah, but anyways, so OG Anunoby, like, ideal team, I think we all agree, is Memphis the ideal fit for OG Anunoby for you guys?
I would agree.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Get Dylan Brooks hitting guys in the nuts. You can go out and get traded.
Brooks hasn't been too impressive for me this year.
Yeah, I think if they can find a way to move off of Dylan Brooks, I know he could be a valuable asset for them, but I think more often than not he's been a distraction. If they can get off of him, I think that'd be a good thing. And OG Anunoby just fits what Memphis needs perfectly.
Perfect. Grit. I mean, that's oh my gosh. I would love it.
I'm
not even a Grizzlies fan. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, Bojan Bogdanović. Where do you guys have him on the trade scale? 0 to 100.
I have him around 30, 35. I mean, I trust that he's a part of our future. I trust that Troy Weaver and him, Troy Weaver sees that he's a part of the future, especially with the Cade Cunningham next year back, the first round pick that we've been talking about, the potential free agent that we signed. You know the drill. I just feel like the numbers that he's putting up is too valuable to just flip for a first round pick in hope that you can get something even remotely close to a Jalen Duren in return. right? I mean, that quality of potential of a player is what I'm getting at, not position-wise. I have that lower on my list, guys.
Yeah. Jeff, what about you?
Well, you guys know how I feel. But I'm going to be real here. I'm going to be real here. I'm going to give my honest opinion. I think Saddiq Bey has a higher percentage of, not this deadline maybe, but higher in general, higher percentage of being traded than Bojan. I do believe that. Despite what I've said in the past about trading Bojan, because I do believe there's value in getting first-round picks. I get your point, Troy, but you look at what the Mavericks were able to do with first-round picks. Like, to go out and get stars, you need picks. So I get that aspect of it. I just don't believe. I think they loved Bojan too much. So I think Bojan's here to stay. If I had to give a percentage, I'd probably say 5%. I don't think he gets moved at all. If anything, maybe Saddiq, but probably wouldn't be ideal, just depending on what you get back.
I'm going 25%. Not saying that I think it's high, because I don't think Bojan's getting traded either. However, I do think the Kyrie move is going to make teams more desperate than they maybe would have been before.
Right.
And I think with that, a team like the Lakers could possibly be willing to give up more for a Bojan Bogdanovic than they maybe would have.
An offer we can't refuse is what you're saying.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, quite frankly, as well, like, if I'm putting on my general manager hat and I'm going out throughout like the rest of the league, and like I'm thinking, all right, what team could potentially trade for Bojan and like put themselves over the top, or like potentially like turn a quarter, make like a significant difference. Like, I'm right away, I go to Cleveland. I think he would be a phenomenal fit there. They need a 3 who can score, and that's Bojan to a T. He doesn't need to be he doesn't need to have the ball in his hands all the time, but you're just going to look up and somehow he's going to have 20. And then, like on the other side, obviously the Lakers need shooters. They need all the help that they can get. And, if you're talking about the assets you can get in return, I mean, those 2027, 2029 unprotected first round picks for the Lakers are pretty tantalizing. But having said all that, I think, from all the reporting we've heard, Troy Weaver doesn't want to move Bojan Bogdanovic if he doesn't have to. Right. So, yeah. But to your point, Jeff, according to James Edwards III, Saddiq Bey reportedly is the most likely to be traded at the deadline. So let's move to Saddiq Bey. What do you guys think is the percentage of Saddiq Bey getting traded? If he were to get traded, what potential landing spots would you like to see for him? And do you think it would be a mistake trading him at the deadline?
Jeff, go first.
I would say it's tough because now, like you said earlier, it depends on the offer, I guess. If you're getting an offer you cannot refuse before at this deadline, I would say do it. But I would just wait, to be honest with you. I mean, this is a lost season as it is. I'd rather just let Saddiq play out. And maybe if you see the flashes you expected to see, or you like what you see, maybe you keep him. But if he doesn't work out, you could trade him in the offseason. There's going to be teams that are still going to be interested in a guy like Saddiq Bey. I mean, he's a productive player. Say what you want. Maybe the fit here is weird. He'll still play plenty of minutes elsewhere. Now, the team is where it gets interesting, because I just have this, I don't know, I have this hate for the Knicks, because I don't want Saddiq to go to the Knicks. But also, the Knicks would be a team I feel like would be desperate enough to pay the asking price for Saddiq. So I'll go with the Knicks, even though I don't want Saddiq to go over there and play for the Knicks because it's a tough organization to get out of. But still, I do think percentage-wise, I'll say 65%. I'll say 65%, slightly higher than I was going to go with. But
whoa.
I think if there's a deal on the table, I think Troy takes it. But there's that 35. Well, maybe you just wait. Maybe you wait till the offseason. Maybe I'll even go 55. There you go, 55-45. Yeah.
I'm at a perfect 50-50 flip of the coin. It's so hard to say. He's a guy that if I were wearing my Troy hat, I would probably wait till the end of the season, certainly want to ride out. But to Jeff's point, if there is an offer you can't refuse, there's an offer you can't refuse with any of the guys that's not named Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, or Isaiah Stewart, then I'm taking it. But I just think, we're still in year 3 with him. There still is potential of the flashes that we've seen. I would just hate to move in, like Jeff said, the wasted season that has been this season. As far as a team, man, I guess I'd be curious to know what teams would be shopping him. Like, would a contender that's looking for a young 6-man to come off the bench? Is it going to be some type of rebuilding team, a team that's looking to shape a different identity, like a Miami Heat? I don't know.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like there's been like a few different teams that have been that have been mentioned around Saddiq, and like it's not like there's like anything that's been super solid. I know the Knicks have been brought up before. I know the Heat have been brought up before. I think he's one of those guys where no matter what, I think Saddiq is going to have a successful career for a long time.
Yeah.
It does come down to the difficult reality that the Pistons are drafting so many good players that you're going to have to sign at some point where it's like, man, like it's like, are you kidding me? Like we're going to have to like move off of somebody. And like the reality of it is like, if you're talking about of the pieces in the young core right now, what is the piece that I like that you could perhaps find easiest in the draft or like in free agency? And I think, like with Saddiq, like there's, like I think there's like, like a plethora of like 3-and-D wings coming out every year. I think, like to a certain extent, I think, Bojan has been able to show that he can do a lot of the things that we were, hoping Saddiq could do on the offensive end, but like at a more consistent rate. So I would say, I'm going to go around where you went to, Jeff. I'm going to say 55% as well. I would say if we're gonna wake up and see anything go down on deadline day, I think it's gonna be Saddiq for that reason. But again, I don't think Troy Weaver is eager to move anybody because he's in a good spot where he has valuable assets in people and players that teams want. When you have players that teams want, that generally means that you probably want them too. So you're in a good spot.
Yeah, I like Miami for him too. I do.
Yeah. Heat culture for Saddiq would be downright dangerous.
Yeah, definitely.
That's for sure. Now we said Saddiq is the most likely Piston to be moved, but in all reality, that's probably a lie. The most likely Piston to be moved is probably Nerlens Noel. Guys,
that's a good point.
I mean, this is where we get into a little bit more we'll get to more fun names here in a second, but real quick, Nerlens Noel, what do you think happens there?
I'm at the 95 camp. I mean,
yeah.
Let's go 99, Troy.
Yeah.
Put it all on the table.
Yeah. I mean, hasn't he reported that both parties have said he's part of the future? Like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like all we're going to get in return though is picks. Like, we're not
probably some expiring dead filler salary and second round pick compensation.
Right. But even the dead filler salary is probably going to be still like a guy that would be a second or third rotation even in this lineup,
Right. Yeah. You're not exactly getting bang busters and back for like in return for Nerlens Noel. That's for sure. Yeah. But Jeff, what about you?
I'll go 101%. I'm going to go over the 100 because it's guaranteed. Yeah, no, this is a guarantee. Now the team, I was going to say the Mavericks. I don't know if they'll be interested in doing another deal, but I like the fit in Dallas. I don't know if they'd be interested, but there's going to be a team that's going to want a guy like Nerlens. I mean, he can provide great minutes off the bench or even start at times. He's so good defensively, so I think he will be traded. But the team's tough. Any team out there that's willing to give anything, literally. I mean, at this point, the Pistons and Nerlens came to that agreement. It's like, hey, we're not going to use you. You want to get out of here? We'll take what we can get. I think he'll be dealt. I'll say 100.1. I'll give it a little 0.1 at the end.
There we go. Nerlens Noel, you're a Philadelphia 76er. Anyway.
That's where he started his career.
Hey, that's a team that drafted him, right?
Full circle.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, they need a backup big. Montrezl Harrell isn't exactly that guy. I don't know if they're going to be able to get much more value than Nerlens Noel in that market because, not exactly a whole lot of playoff caliber teams looking to give up rim protectors right now. Not sure if you know that, but something that's not exactly a hot commodity to sell. So, will be interesting to see how that develops there. Let's get to some fun names, though, shall we? Russell Westbrook.
Ooh.
The Supermax contract that's on an expiring deal. Reportedly, the Lakers are shopping Russ and are going to different teams. Could he end up in San Antonio? Could he end up in Chicago? Could he end up where? Like, what do you guys think? Do you think Russ gets dealt? The most likely to win, the front runner, I should say, for the NBA Sixth Man of the Year award for a guy who's getting paid super max caliber money. But that's a whole other conversation. But Jeff, what would you? Whoever wants to start.
Well, they made a terrible mistake, the Lakers, man. I mean, not just trading for Russell. We can get to that, but also not getting rid of him last year. Like, I don't know what the mindset was. Maybe keeping him to see if there was a deal by the deadline. If there's a team that's interested, the team you just brought it up, it's Chicago, because I don't know what direction Chicago's going in. If they're going in towards a rebuild, like, hey, let's just start trading away DeMar or Zach LaVine. Maybe the Lakers can get on Zach LaVine, and maybe they can take Russell, and you could give them obviously first-round draft picks and some other players. Well, you can get Zach. But even then, it's like that'd be the only team. It's tough. You'd have to sell Russell to a team that's going into a rebuild that they can just let him walk and clear all that money away. So I don't have a lot of destinations, but if I had to give a percentage, I'd probably say 35%, because I think they want to trade him, but will he get traded is the question.
Right. And I mean, like, I think the difficult part of it, Jeff, is I think the Lakers, after making the move, have, like, this season, I think they've handled the Russ situation the best that they could have. I think, like, they've for the most part rejuvenated his image, rejuvenated his like essentially what people view of him as far as on the basketball court, because even though it's hard to picture where he could go beyond this year, I mean, I think we all can agree at least he looks like an NBA level player right now, right? That's something we couldn't say this time last year.
Yeah,
so
he was refusing to go to the bench, and now he took that role.
Right, exactly. Which, I mean, granted, probably because he had to, but like, but the reality of it is, like, I think there's some truth to the fact that like the ultimate truth is who's going to be the team that's going to be able to, take him on and eat that salary, but also like give something of value to the Lakers in return. Because, like, the Lakers are going to have to give up that draft compensation, but they're also going to want some players that are going to be able to help this team contend. Like, is Jakob Poeltl from San Antonio, like, is that really like changing things for you guys? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is that something you really want to give up attach it like an unprotected pick to? Like, Troy, that's where I think it gets really hard with moving Russ is you have to attach future draft compensation to move this guy. And there's just not exactly a market where you're getting much value in return to help this team win right now.
Right. That's why I'm going to go only about 40%. I mean, I even have it that high just because I think you're at somewhat of a crossing point or a desperation mode where you wanted to get rid of them. But the value is just not there for me. And I think all 30 teams, including the Lakers, know Russell Westbrook by now. Like, no GM is thinking, well, maybe under this roster, maybe we have the roster that Russ can succeed at and excel. And maybe we can become contenders with Russ. Like, I don't think of any team in the league that's having that conversation right now. I think a Chicago would be interesting. A DeMar DeRozan moving, I would see him probably being moved, maybe even more than LaVine.
It looks like reportedly, it looks like the teams that they're currently having conversations with are currently Charlotte and Utah. Oh. So Charlotte makes sense to me for Russell Westbrook. I'm sure, I know that they brought up before a desire of getting a guy like a Terry Rozier in Los Angeles. I still don't think that's a needle mover at all. I'll be quite frank with you, man. I think Kyrie was the one hope that the Lakers had at getting something that would turn this season around. I think that was their only hope. And you saw LeBron go on Twitter afterwards and say, maybe it's me, which, yes, it's you. You were the one that went to Rob Pelinka and said, get me Russell Westbrook, whatever it takes. Get me Anthony Davis, whatever it takes. And you let every single young asset, trade piece, every little bit of value that the Lakers built up over a decade completely crumble within 5 years. Guys, they somehow traded away more first-round picks than the Rams. Like that's saying, like it feels like it, like that's unreal, man.
Yeah. And it's always tough for me because I wouldn't call myself a LeBron defender. I definitely call him out when it's needed to be, but the late GM memes are always funny. I get that. LeBron has a lot of pull, and if he tells Rob, I want Russell Westbrook, clearly Rob, he's going to do what's best. He's going to be like, all right, taking into consideration.
Right.
That's also Rob's job to know the fit. And same with LeBron. I mean, you got to be self-aware enough to know how have you won championships.
Right.
But Rob's got to be like, dude.
Well, that's where it ultimately is down to the executive, because yes, like LeBron's an idiot for going to Rob Pelinka and saying, hey, I want Russ.
After a championship, Sean. That's what still blows my mind. I mean, I guess a year after, but
yeah, he said, I want Russ. The thing that makes it dumb is Rob Pelinka said, that's a great idea. How about Kyle Kuzma? How about we'll give you everybody.
KCP hit huge shots in the bubble. Mm-hmm. And LeBron excels with shooters.
Duh. I mean, we all
rocket science.
How does oh god? Hey, they got AR-15 though. Don't forget.
When they tried to tell me, but guys, they're gonna have solid vets like Wayne Ellington and Trevor Ariza. I was like, no.
Trevor Ariza was in the league. Trevor Ariza's not in the league anymore.
I was like, clearly, I know you guys haven't been watching Detroit Pistons basketball over the last couple of years, but I have. And Wayne Ellington, I can tell you, is not going to come help any contender. And Trevor Ariza was only on our roster for 20 minutes before being flipped to Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
For a guy that we didn't even play, that we flipped that guy too. I don't even remember that guy's name we flipped him for.
I mean, both Pistons legends. That's all. That's all you got to. I mean, we had Dwayne Dedman at one point too. Pistons legend Dwayne Dedman. All right, moving on. Let's go to an old friend of Russell Westbrook. We brought up this guy earlier, Kevin freaking Durant.
Middle name's freaking.
Let's start. I think the percentage is going to be the hardest part, because here's the thing that makes this pod crazy, guys. We're recording this on a Monday night. This is going up on Wednesday. Everything we've said so far could be mute because of a transaction that happens in the next 48 hours.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, whatever happens from here. But Kevin Durant, as of Monday night, 8:28 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Jeff, is Kevin Durant going to be in a new home this time next week?
Oh, Kevin Durant. That's tough. According to Stephen A. Smith's sources, yes. But I don't know the sources he's speaking to. So for me, it's all speculation.
He said, watch out.
He said,
all I'm saying. Watch out.
Just say watch out for everything.
Boston. And then Boston is all I'm saying. All I'm saying.
I guess that's how it works. You say watch out. If it doesn't happen, then you're good. But if it does, then you can say, well, I said watch out. So
I just told you to watch.
I told you to watch out. I don't think KD gets moved. I maybe in the offseason when he's more public about it, I want out. But in this short of time, I mean, Kyrie just got traded, and you expect Kevin Durant to ask for a trade. I haven't seen it publicly come out. And then he get dealt within a couple days. Imagine the amount of assets Kevin Durant is going to take. And I know he's much older. He hasn't been healthy, but it's still Kevin freaking Durant. So I'm curious what the trade package for him even looks like. And I don't know if you can get that over the next couple days, but maybe I sound like a complete idiot. I'm going to say no. I don't think he gets traded, and I'll say the percentage on it. I'll say 25%. I'll go there.
Yeah.
At least this deadline. I don't think so.
I think I'm with you, Jeff. I think I'm going to go a little bit lower. I'm going to go 15%. I think as of right now, I think the Brooklyn Nets are going to do everything that they can to continue to build around Kevin Durant and not trade him. I think it's certainly something. I certainly think they have two lines going at the same time. I think they're certainly making calls about both. You know what I mean? Because I think you have to at least have something in the back pocket for a Kevin Durant move, but you certainly would prefer to try to build something around him right now. Personally, if I would want to see him go anywhere, I mean, Boston. Like,
Oh
I mean,
my
like if he is gonna go anywhere, like, and like if Boston is gonna like flirt for so long with like the possibility of this, as awesome as Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have been, as amazing as this Boston Celtics roster is, I still can't say with 100% certainty they can beat Giannis 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
I can't. Like, not with a healthy Chris Middleton next to him.
Right.
If you had Kevin Durant, I can say that pretty certainly.
And that's why if I'm Boston, I am pushing hard for a Kevin Durant. Now, I know that's just one source we're talking about here.
And the source is Stephen A. Smith.
Right.
That's
I mean, listen, as much as we joke about Stephen A. Smith, he, like, when it comes to the NBA, he has his sources.
Right.
Like the guy just had freaking Jeannie Buss on his podcast a couple weeks ago. Like, this guy knows people.
Right. Yeah. So I certainly makes things fun. But I'm still gonna have to go with around the 25%, like Jeff said. I just think, and to your point too, Sean, you guys, going before me got all the good stuff out of the way, but it seems like that's not the direction Brooklyn is going with that Kyrie trade. I think, again, they're building around KD, not moving away from KD. But it also makes things interesting too. This is the same guy who requested a trade back in early July.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not too long ago.
If you're the Phoenix Suns, are you calling Brooklyn and offering guys like Cam Thomas,
of course,
potentially? I think obviously like guys like Mikal Bridges are off the table. You know what I mean?
Cam Johnson. So
the only
Cam Johnson. Like, I think Mikal Bridges is off the table, but Cam Johnson is definitely someone that they would consider trading, I'm sure.
Oh, they even consider trading Chris Paul, which I mean, it's not too surprising. But
I'm sure they'd love to move that contract. I'm sure they would.
Who wouldn't? The only 2 players to me that are untouchable on the Suns are Devin Booker and, to your point, is Mikal Bridges. You could, I would be like, Brooklyn, anybody else you want to roster, DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul, take them.
Throw in Ayton.
Yeah, take Ayton. You could have him. I mean, he was reluctant to even resign here anyway. So he gets a new home. You get Kevin Durant. Obviously, it's not going to just be Ayton, but anybody. I mean, you could grab multiple players and picks. Who cares? You get Kevin freaking Durant and Devin Booker and Mikal Bridges. Yeah. In a wide open West. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm so glad you guys went there. DeAndre Ayton, a guy who for months has, and he hasn't been floated around. Like, there haven't been many like trade rumors of DeAndre Ayton. However, we know the Phoenix Suns are not particularly happy with where they currently sit. We have seen of late some pretty good performances from Ayton at times, but according to Shams Charania, the Phoenix Suns are expected to be incredibly active over the next several days to add to their roster. It says that apparently he says they want to build around DeAndre Ayton, but I call BS. What are your guys' thoughts?
You go first, Troy.
Yeah, I'm not quite there either. I think with Ayton, it's tough because, you paid him a lot this summer. The fact that they retracted the Pacers signing, it just blew my mind. They were even going to go in that direction, but I just don't know fully if they have a market for him. I'm going about 25% on this. I think in the summertime maybe you do, but I just don't think this week.
Yeah, that's fair. Jeff, are you along the same thinking?
Yeah, similar. I think the game plan to match DeAndre Ayton's offer and retain him is smart because you can deal him. But to Troy's point, like, what value has he created for himself? And clearly that experiment, the whole let's run back the team that we made the finals with, isn't going so well. They're getting Devin Booker. They got Devin Booker back, but still, the Suns, to me, you got to find a way to deal DeAndre Ayton. But again, I mean, where are the buyers? I mean, if Brooklyn is involved and they're interested, and I'm willing to get KD and I could throw in other assets, yes. But besides that, I really don't know a fit for DeAndre Ayton. Like, I don't know. I don't know the market. So I would say I'll go where Troy is, probably 20-25%. I don't think he gets dealt this deadline. It's too quick.
Yeah, that's fair. Guys, one last question on the NBA trade deadline before I pass it off for Jeff's segment. If you could take over and be the general manager of any team during the duration of this trade deadline, who would it be and what moves are you immediately making?
Ooh.
What is your priority? Like what team are you taking over? And what is your number one priority when you step in that office? Just solely from the perspective of an NBA fan, like taking all biases out of it. You want to like just take the chaos of the league and flip it on another level. What are you doing?
Yeah, originally I was going to say Lakers just because that's interesting, but I think, Sean, you brought up something just about 5 minutes ago that I didn't really think much of, is that Boston and Milwaukee, we've been talking about them so much this whole year of, they're the ones to make it out of the East. It's Boston and Milwaukee versus everyone else in the East. They are so close to each other that if I'm either one, and I'm just going to pick Boston because they have, I think, maybe a little more pieces, a little more depth, your mission is to put yourself over the hump of the other team. So I'm going to go Boston with this one, in that I am moving pieces around. I mean, if Durant's available, I guess you do have to trade Brown, but I would like to keep Brown and Tatum together and then move my other pieces. What's a Marcus Smart's value going to be? What's an Al Horford, as much as he's been playing great, and how valuable he was in your run to the finals last year? Those are the guys I'm shopping to see what can I get. Throwing a pick in there too. What the heck? What can I do to beat Giannis in Milwaukee is what I'm thinking. So I'm going Boston.
So if you're Boston, you're just saying we have the potential to win a title right now. Yes. How do we make sure this happens?
Correct.
That's fair. Jeff, what about you?
Well, I like building. That's one of my most favorite parts of all sports is the rebuild. Although it's not ideal, I like the process, seeing it flourish into eventually a contender. So I want to be Masai Ujiri. I want to be the Raptors. I want to be in charge of the Raptors because you have at your hands all these assets that people are going to want. Oh my gosh! I mean, you got we already talked about OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, Siakam, Gary Trent Jr. Guys that teams are going to be interested in. I want to be Masai with the Raptors because this is a time to capitalize on it and make a decision. What way are you going with this franchise? And if you're going towards a rebuild, you got all the assets to jumpstart this rebuild, build around your franchise player and Scotty Barnes. So I'm going to go with the Raptors. I think it's the most interesting team because of all the assets that Masai has.
Yeah.
At his disposal.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that. If I could go in and take over any team for the course of a few days, it's the team we just talked about, the Phoenix Suns. I'm going in. Okay, guys. Devin Booker's way too good. This is bull. Everything that's happened is stupid. We have everything we need to win a championship. We're not going through this bull again of losing by 50 to the Mavericks at home in the playoffs. I'm going in and I'm ripping off the freaking Band-Aids, and I'm doing everything I can to actually make a title contender in Phoenix, because bloody hell, man, if they waste the prime of Devin Booker and everything that they built over the course of the last couple of years, and they just squander that, I mean, man.
This is a team that made the finals. They have the pieces. We know it.
Yeah. And like the West is so wide open. Like this is the most, I would argue I would argue right now, we're not going to know who the number one contender in the West is until after Thursday. If no moves are made, the Denver Nuggets are going to the NBA Finals.
Yeah, I don't think too many people would argue that.
But guys,
especially if Golden State walks in there banged up.
I mean, but guys, one last thing before we move on to talk. That's a team we didn't talk about. What if Denver decides to get more active around the trade deadline? What if Denver's a team that tries to go after an OG Anunoby and move some pieces around and tries to be more aggressive? I mean, I would argue, I mean, the way they're looking right now, I don't know if they have a whole lot of holes or weaknesses. I actually like their wing depth. I mean, Jamal Murray is starting to look more and more like himself again. Jokic is incredible. I mean, Aaron Gordon's been awesome for them. What would you guys do if you're the general manager of the Denver Nuggets this trade deadline?
Ooh. Yeah, I might shop Porter, but I'm not going to go all in and trying to move him. I think he's been valuable to this team, but also I think
But what's his trade value though, just with his injury history and his contract?
Right,
That's my
right.
question.
Right. Yeah. Maybe you're not going to get much out of him. I probably wouldn't shop KCP just because I think that when you go in long runs in the playoffs, you need those guys who can make shots, and he's proved himself in the playoffs.
You
In the
need all
finals.
the shooters by Jokic too.
Yeah. So I'm not moving away from KCP. Maybe you go in your bench and try to get in. If I'm going to make any move, maybe it'd be to improve your bench. But again, like you said, Sean, if nothing happens, Denver is the favorite.
Right.
I mean, why fix something that's not broken?
Yeah, and you brought up there like trying to improve their bench. That is kind of the one area that they have been a little bit active at the deadline. It does sound like reportedly Bones Highland is on the market, which Bones Highland, like really intriguing young player, good backup point guard, but from the sounds of it, it sounds like Denver just really thinks they can win it this year, and it sounds like they want a guy who's ready to go on a run right now. And according to Tim McMahon, he said, quote, Bones Highland is getting traded. It's a matter of where and for what. So I saw someone bring up, should the Pistons trade for him? I was like, guys, come on. I was like, how many guards do we need to go for here?
No,
I was like, bloody hell.
Not. If I'm the Nuggets, besides Bones, I'm not. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I like the talent they have. I do. I like the roster they have. I think you made a great point, Sean, about how wide open the West is, because it is. I mean, we haven't seen the West this wide open in years, and now with the Nuggets fully healthy, I think the only player you're probably looking to move is Bones. But besides that, I like the roster. I do. Yeah,
most certainly. I mean, they're in a situation where they're the healthiest they've been in a while. They were incredibly competitive, when they weren't healthy last year. And so I'm just excited to see. I'm excited to see what a healthy Denver can do in the playoffs, man. Because Nikola Jokic, I know he gets all the regular season accolades and everything, but to actually have a chance, like for him to actually finally get his chance to start competing and like actually making deep playoff runs, I'm excited for that, man.
Mm-hmm.
But Jeff, I want to bring it to you. I know we were doing some trade scenarios last week. I want to know what you got planned for us this week.
So figured we'd be doing more trade scenarios. So I wanted to go back to Pretender or Contender. And I want to go through two teams. I want to bring up teams that I haven't mentioned previously, especially this time of year. Teams, that you can even foreshadow making moves, but you could go with how you want. If you expect to make moves or as currently constructed, or they pretenders or contenders. And the first team I'm going to start off with is a team that we've been covering for a majority of the back end of this podcast, and that's the Denver Nuggets. Clearly, you guys know they're contenders, so I don't really need to do that. We're going to move on because you guys already spoke about them. The next team I want to bring up, another team, we're going to go out east, and I want you guys' true opinion. And I gotta be honest here because I'm a little torn. The Miami Heat, as currently constructed, I do not think are contenders, but if they can make a move, can the Miami Heat get into the conversation of the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks as currently constructed, or even making a move, or are they just pretenders at the end of the day?
No.
Yeah.
How sad is that, by the way? As a fan base, think of the Miami Heat fans that have a team, you're in the playoff hunt, and you're not looked at as a legitimate contender. I think that's worse than being a team that maybe is on the outside but has a young core of players. I mean, that's a tough spot to be in.
It feels like, is it me, or does it feel like every single transaction the Miami Heat have made over the last 2 years feels like they've done it a year too late?
Yeah.
Like you signed, you extended Duncan Robinson a year too late. You went for Kyle Lowry a year too late. You're super hyped. You got Bam Adebayo. You added him and are building around him right when we're going towards a perimeter base league. It's like, it's just a plethora of things to me with Miami, man. I listen, I love Bam. He's a hell of a player. Jimmy Butler, we've talked about how competitive he is and the fire that he brings on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah.
I mean, all I saw on the Heat of late is that they're reportedly, they might reportedly try to go after Bradley Beal in the summer. And like, even then, I still don't think that puts them there. I just got to be honest with this current nucleus. I just don't think there's a path right now for them to get to that conversation. But yet again, they somehow got to the Eastern Conference Finals with this team last year. So what the heck do I know?
What about you, Troy? I'm assuming we all agree here.
Yeah, definitely a pretender. I just think they don't have really the pieces. I mean, I guess they do have some pieces, but to bring them into contender, it's just not there. Kyle Lowry, I would say his career is more on the downfall than it is going up. I don't think that really needs much explanation. And a Bam too, like Sean said, not really a good player that would be helpful on most teams, but not a guy that fits the modern day NBA in a lot of ways as far as to be even your second or third option on a championship team. It's just not there. So yeah, I mean, but I think moving forward now, the question is what needs to get done for them to quote unquote kind of, because I think next year we could be having and even maybe this year we're having more of the conversation of like the Raptors, right? They're in a crossroads of, okay, Jimmy Butler's a great player. I assume you still want to bring pieces around him. He has shown that he can be the guy on a contending team as they went to the finals in 2020 in the bubble. But you want to keep a Tyler Hero as well. But really with those moves with Bam and some of your other players as well, I think you would probably want to see how you can trade some of them to get you on the right path. But as far as this season contending, absolutely not.
No, and I would agree with you guys as well. You're in a tough spot. I mean, there's players that aren't really that intriguing. I mean, your best asset, I mean, besides obviously Jimmy, maybe Tyler Hero, you're probably not moving him. I mean, Bam Adebayo, maybe I want to see the market for him. So I agree. I think they're pretenders. The next team, it's actually relevant to this week. Obviously, we talked about the Kyrie Irving trade, but the Dallas Mavericks. How serious are you taking the Dallas Mavericks? Are they pretenders? Are they contenders? I think in a wide open West, they certainly have a shot to make a playoff run. I just think defensively, there's serious issues with that roster as currently constructed. And we haven't even seen Kyrie and Luka play together. I think it'll be, I don't think the fits, I don't think it's not going to work, but to say right now, I think they're contender. I'm going to say, this is tough because I don't think they're pretenders as in they're a bad roster. I just don't think they're legitimate contenders. So I'm going to lean pretenders, but still they got two talented players in their backcourt. They do.
Right. I mean, they can sure as hell make noise like this season. And I can't deny that. Like, I think the problem, and I said this, I said this, earlier, the problem is like basketball just not played on paper. And it's the same thing that we do every single time a massive trade like this goes down. We look at it from top down as if we're going to load up this roster in 2K and how it stacks up against everyone else. But the reality of it is that like to win a championship, there's the interpersonal dynamics. There's being a human being. And sure, like I know Kyrie Irving's favorite player growing up was Jason Kidd. I know that like he's going to have respect for Luka Doncic and for the game that he has and everything like that. But I mean, the truth of the matter is everything would have to go perfectly for this team to have a shot. And even then we just talked, I mean, they're already 24th in defense before this move. I'm going to go on a limb and say they're going to be 30th in defense after this move. I feel pretty comfortable saying that.
So what you're saying is trading away Finney-Smith and getting Kyrie Irving doesn't improve your team defensively. Okay.
You know what? I don't think it does. Something about it. It's weird. But yeah, they're going to set defense back 40 years. It's going to be insane.
What about you, Troy?
I still need to see a few more games to make a decision on it.
Yeah, a few more, Troy. They haven't played together at all.
Okay, I misspoke. I need to see a few games, not more. Cross out more. I need to see a few games of this to see it work out. Because again, like I said, I mean, like Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic on the court together. Like that is an offensive beauty of a construction, right? And if they're clicking and if they're on the same page and Jason Kidd has them buying to the locker room of the culture that they're trying to start, I mean, this could be a deep conference finals run if everything is clicking. But again, they need two guys. They need both of them there at all times, like we've talked about before.
I can tell Troy's struggling with this one. It's a tough one.
Troy,
I'm still going to say
Troy,
contenders.
Did you say contenders?
Yep.
Okay.
Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, contenders. But boy, if one goes down, I'm instantly changing that.
Yeah. You just got to score 135 points a game and they'll be all right. I think, 130, 135. They'll win a lot of games.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I still think they would have to make some moves before the deadline to really solidify. I really think you're going to have to move off of Christian Wood in order to make this team viable on the defensive end, because bloody hell, this is guys, I'm not trying to be mean here, but holy Lord. Like I know we're talking about how incredible this team's going to be on the offensive end, and I know there's certain nights where it's not going to matter. It's going to matter when it comes playoff time.
Yep.
Because teams can hyper focus on just Luka and Kyrie. Are you confident that Tim Hardaway Jr. or Reggie Bullock are going to be able to beat you?
I was going to ask Troy. I mean, if they're contenders, can they beat Denver?
No.
Can they beat Memphis?
They can.
Will they?
No.
Can they beat Golden State Can they beat Golden State 4 times in the playoff series?
With everyone healthy on Golden State?
Yeah.
No.
So they're pretenders.
In my heart, Sean, I know they are pretenders, but I want to say they're contenders because I love Luka. And I'm so pumped that he has a guy like Kyrie for talent.
I get it. Because again, like I even saw on ESPN, like people were saying this team go to the NBA finals. Like people
I'm not about to say that.
And it's on paper, sure. Like you can say that the max could be that.
Sharing the ball is going to be very interesting too, because Luka's never had a player like Kyrie to play with.
That's true. That's true.
Like the question with Kyrie needs to stop being will he be a distraction and needs to start being when will he be a distraction next. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so I listen, if he has inklings that he might not have a deal coming his way next year in Dallas, are you saying he might not make that some form of drama down the stretch in the playoffs? I mean, he did just try to overthrow Brooklyn's season. So
it's true.
Anything can happen, man. But with that, Troy, you know what time it is, my friend. It is time for From Mount Rushmore. Troy, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, I'm kind of inspired by the Kyrie deal. We've never gone this direction before. One of the most obvious parts about the game is you got to dribble the ball. So we're going to do Mount Rushmore best handles of all time. I think that's a fun one. We're almost 100 episodes deep, Sean, and we've never done that one before. I think that'll be a good one to go to. So handles. Why are you laughing, Sean?
Because we just spent all this time bashing Dallas for Kyrie and Luka, but right after you posed that, it made me think, could you legitimately make the argument that both Luka and Kyrie are on the handles Mount Rushmore?
You might. You absolutely might.
Kyrie's certainly there, right?
Yeah.
Kyrie's certainly there.
Yeah, but I'm going to start. We'll end maybe with him. I'm going to start with my favorite player of all time, Pistol Pete Maravich, with the Jazz, with the Hawks, with the Celtics. This is a guy that was so ahead of his time. This was a guy who still to this day is the all-time leading scorer in NCAA. It's getting really close with that kid from Detroit Mercy, Anton Davis. But his record as far as points per game, now we're talking about points now, we're talking about handles. Points per game will be untouchable, 44.2. No one's breaking that. But handles, yeah. I mean, the guy revolutionized the game. I mean, he was ahead of his time. Magic says, I tried to be Pistol Pete in high school, right? So this was a guy that shaped the NBA in the 70s to get to, I think, the 80s and the 90s in a lot of ways, what you see with guys like AI, even Magic himself. I just think Pistol Pete has to be on my list of best handles.
Yeah, he he kind of set the way, like you said, for the conversation of players, getting creative with their handle. You know what I mean? Like I think you've seen, like over the years, basketball has, not only been a sport, but I think, more so than any other sport, has almost been an art form for certain players because of the different things you can do. And I would say that Pistol Pete was probably the first one to get out the paintbrush on a basketball court.
Yeah, not many people know this too, but after college, he was offered a big contract with the Harlem Globetrotters, but he said, no, I want to play in the NBA, which props to him for doing that, because that would have been a lot different if he went the form of the entertainer in the basketball versus the actual player. So,
oh yeah, 100%. But Jeff, who you got on the Mount Rushmore of handles?
Well, we're going to get to him eventually, and it's the answer: Allen Iverson, the MVP, the 11-time All-Star, the scoring leader. I mean, there's not much to say about AI. I mean, he transformed the game, at least how it was perceived. I mean, when AI got in, AI was 110% himself, unapologetically, and that's what I respect about him. One of the greatest point guard, two guards, whatever you want to call him, of all time. And I think his handle certainly deserves a lot of respect. So I'm going to go with the answer for my choice.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that one, man. I mean, Allen freaking Iverson with a basketball. Ooh. I mean, yeah, there's nothing
dancing
that you're doing there.
No one will ever forget the infamous Michael Jordan crossover, all right, by Allen Iverson. Yeah, so he deserves to be out there.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going interesting with here. We know Kyrie's on the list. We'll save him for last, but I'm going to toss up here. We know Magic could play the ball well, but also White Chocolate. How about Jason? Jason,
he's got to be on there, man.
Jay Will?
Got to be. White Chocolate, man.
Yeah, I mean, the way that the guy, his passing was just as impressive as his ball handling, but a lot of his passing had to do with his ball handling, as in the bounce pass, as in the fake, as in the dribble between the legs, pounce. He
did the elbow pass,
so much elbow, so much flick of the wrist with that pass. Jay Will has to be on my Mount Rushmore.
Can I throw in an honorable mention?
Let's hear it.
Chris Paul.
Yeah,
absolutely. The point guard, everything that he was able to do with the basketball. I mean, we've all seen the patented Chris Paul driving to the basket, dribbling between his legs, turning it into a fader in the mid range. Like, we've seen him do that hundreds of times, and he still gets it it almost feels like he still gets it every single time. It, like, when Chris Paul was truly at his best, like, he was dropping fools on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah, and I think with handles, I think passing goes hand in hand with handles in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
You use your handles to pass then to facilitate the ball.
Well, that's hand in hand, you use your hands.
Right.
And don't forget, too, the guys we're mentioning, 90% of who we just mentioned was under 6'3".
Yeah.
I mean, so think about at that size, that's what you have to do. And another name I'll mention is Steph Curry. I mean, it's
I was gonna say, Steph.
We gotta throw Steph in there. I mean, I think with his shooting ability, with his ability to create his own shot off the dribble, makes him even more of a dangerous player. Mm-hmm. So there's plenty of names to go through.
Another guy.
Yeah. We could sit here. I mean, there's so many. Jamal Crawford.
Oh yeah, Jamal Crawford.
Jamal Crossover, as he should have known as.
Yeah. But we gotta close with Kyrie, guys. I mean,
and then Kyrie. Listen, personally, Kyrie to me has the best handles of all time. I think I've ever seen. I can't speak for anybody else, but from what I've witnessed, he has the best handles.
And that's unlocked so much of his offensive game. Like, his handles has helped him score the ball better, helped him pass the ball better, and helped him create plays for his offense in order to be a contender. Right? Look at Cleveland with the title runs. Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
And for the sake of full transparency, the reason why I get so passionate about Kyrie is, and the reason why I come off so frustrated about Kyrie is because Kyrie Irving has been my favorite player to watch in the NBA for a long time. Like, he was my favorite player in the league for 5 years. Like, there's probably no player I've seen live outside of the Pistons more than Kyrie Irving, because the guy is box office. I mean, Troy, you and I alone. We've seen them together twice.
Twice, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when we had the opportunity to, we like, especially when he was in Boston.
We hopped in
Oh
that car
my
and went to
gosh,
Detroit,
man.
Yeah.
His first 2 years in Boston, I mean,
Yeah.
forget about it, dude. That Kyrie Irving was just a different level. I'll never forget when Kyrie Irving had to don the mask in Boston too. Mask Kyrie was one of my favorite runs of an NBA player ever. Just like random regular season runs. Mask Kyrie was a killer, dude.
Yeah, it certainly was. Magic Johnson, honorable mention.
Of course. My longtime friend, Magic Johnson, from the one
Isaiah
time we met
Thomas
when I was a kid. Yeah. Isaiah Thomas, Zeke.
Yeah. How can we not? You got to get that.
Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah. We'd be dumbasses if we didn't throw Zeke in there. Thank you for mentioning
Rondo, maybe.
Oh, yeah, of course. And it's kind of weird to name Rajon Rondo as one of the best of all time in anything, because it's like he had an awesome 4 years, and then the rest of his career happened. But anyway, speaking of only being awesome for 4 years and the rest of their career happening, what will happen to From Half Court someday? And you can be along for the journey if you click some. Thank you all so much for being here, listening to From Half Court, the trade deadline special. Troy, Jeff, I'm really excited to go through next week and talk about everything that happened and review everything we got right, everything we got wrong. And I'm excited to see if there's things that we didn't even consider. You know what I mean? Like, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah, right. So, that's going to be the most fun, is when a player that we wasn't even on our radar to even talk about today gets traded, because we know it's going to happen.
It's gonna.
Without a doubt. And when it does, be sure that you're subscribed and tuned in here, because this is the place where we're going to be breaking it all down. Also, be sure you go follow my guy Jeff on Twitter at JeffIFradian. Check him Monday through Friday in the morning, Woodward Show. And also follow my boy Troy at TroySergey44. And if you're feeling so generous, follow me at Sean Half Court and catch me on Mornings with the Murph Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But that's going to do it here, folks. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you subscribe.